Hey, it's Sandra, and welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. It's a place to be for education about asexuality. So subscribe and hit that bell icon right now. So have you ever wondered what is in the woods? Have you ever wanted to see multiple fairy tales come to life, but on the dark side? Well, Into the Woods, the movie, is what I'm about to reveal to you. So if you've not yet watched this movie and you don't like spoilers, please do not watch this video. If you love spoilers, want to know more, then stay tuned. So I watched Into the Woods, which is on Disney Plus. Now, Into the Woods is basically based on the storyline that a baker and his wife want a child, but they can't because they've been cursed by a witch. Or rather, he and his family have been cursed by a witch, and that affects who he's with. So his wife is childless and they really want a baby badly. So this witch visits them, tells them about the curse and why she's put the curse on him and basically his family, the house. And that was because his dad stole some magic beans from her years ago. And so his mother died, and then the dad abandoned him and ran away, basically. And she cursed him, which was the baker, which was the guy's son, and the house, saying anyone who is with him in this house will be childless. And in order to break this spell, the baker and his wife are required to get 4 items. One of them is something that's blood red. One of them is something that's like pure white. Another thing is like pure gold, like a gold, bit like an ear of corn, right? So that's 3 of the items, and they have to get a 4th one as well. So during the time when they have to get these items, the baker and his wife become different people. So they're kind of like fearful, but seemingly like honest. They're kind of like living a mediocre life, but they clearly care about each other. But they don't work together as a team at the beginning. You see, like when they're talking about children, they're kind of like a bit more separated in their mannerisms. And she kind of sees throughout the progress of the journey of him getting these items for them both that he changes and he becomes a more passionate guy, which she loves. And so he's very much used to doing stuff on his own. He kind of pushes her away. And then in the woods is where he has to go to find these items. And a lot happens in these woods. It's kind of crazy. So there are 4 fairy tales like rolled into one in this movie. One is Cinderella, and that's a big storyline. So you've got the wife and his baker, which is like the main 2 characters, if you like, but there's also a whole other lot of main things happening as well. So the Cinderella story is quite big to the movie. This is all a modern day Cinderella story, you know? So you got a Cinderella story built into it. They got a Rapunzel story built into it. They got a Little Red Riding Hood story built into it, and a Jack and the Beanstalk built into it. And all these characters end up crossing paths in the wood. And so this is very interesting. And there's the witch is hiding Rapunzel in the castle because the Rapunzel girl, she is actually sister to the guy who she's cursed because she took away his sister at birth for herself and then locked her up in this castle. And there's 2 princes, and one prince finds Rapunzel and eventually gets her away from the Wicked Witch, if you like. There is Jack, whose mother is always berating him, and they're desperate for food, and he has a white cow. So the baker tries to get the white cow off him, and his wife ends up coming into the forest because she wants to help, even though the baker doesn't want her there originally. and she says she's got these beans and they're magic beans. So they get the cow for the magic beans because they have to collect something that's like pure white, and that's the nearest thing they can get to it. So Jack takes these beans back, and then they grow into the big giant beanstalk. And then he gets 5 gold coins, massive giant coins, and he tries to buy his cow back. But the baker doesn't want to give him his cow back because he needs it for the witch. Because the witch says you have to give me 4 items before the moon rises, or moon disappears, actually. You know, the moon comes up and then it disappears. I don't know what you call that. I can't remember. But basically, on the 3rd day of the festival, there's a festival going on that Cinderella's attending, and her mum, Cinderella's mum's dead, but she's a ghost in a tree, and she grants Cinderella a wish to go to the. It's like a ball, but it's called a festival, and she goes there 3 times, and every time she tries to flee from the prince, but the 3rd time she does leave her slipper behind her. It's not a glass slipper, really. It's a shoe. It's a gold shoe, and the wife of the baker is trying to look for something that's yellow gold color, and so she cuts Rapunzel's hair thinking that might be the answer to what the witch is looking for. And then she wants to get the glass slipper off the Cinderella, but the first time she attempts that, Cinderella flees. The second time, which was on the 3rd night of the festival, she gets given the shoe. She explains what's happened, that she needs it for the kid, to have a baby. And so yeah, and so Red Riding Hood is really weird. So what the baker does, he needs to get her cloak because he needs something blood red, and he needs to get her cloak. So he travels into the woods by foot, and he tries to get the little Red Riding hood off her, but she's like really angry. She starts to kind of like scream or cry or something, and then he's like giving her hoodie back, a Red Riding Hood, her outfit back, right? It's like a shawl with a hood. So he gives it her back, and then she stamps on his foot and says she hates him, but she's already spoken to a big bad wolf that is played by Johnny Depp. And he's dressed in all wolf's clothing. So he's got wolf hands, wolf tail, but he's got human clothes over the top of the wolf's clothes, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of weird, but he always plays weird characters anyway, as you know. And so he happens to eat the girl and her grandma, and then the baker finds them and he cuts the wolf's stomach open and frees them. That bit was very, very weird. And so the girl gives him the red hood, she gives him the red shawl, basically. And it's very interesting. All these kind of characters intermingling. The prince comes after Cinderella. The ugly stepsisters are basically, I was going to say tried by their mother, forced by their mother to try on the shoe. And the mother like cuts one of their toes off. The mother cuts the other girl's heel off. It's disgusting. You don't actually see them do it, but you hear them scream and see the knife. It's horrible. And so that's quite brutal. But luckily you didn't actually see her cut into it. So, but of course they were dripping with blood and they didn't fit into the actual shoe. And so Cinderella tries it on, and she's in like her peasant garments, and the prince marries her, right? And the other prince gets Rapunzel and takes her away from the witch. They do get the items, but the cow dies that they wanted, and the cow belonged to Jack. So yeah, it's very complicated interweaving storyline. But basically at the end, the boy, who's Jack, has to milk the dead cow that witch has brought back to life after the cow has eaten all these things, like the shoe. It has to eat the golden shoe. It has to eat Red Riding Hood's cloak, I should say, Red Riding Hood's hoodie. It has to eat like just, weird things, basically. And not usually edible things, but then they realised that it has to eat Goldilocks' hair. Not Goldilocks' hair, sorry, Rapunzel's hair. But the hair in the shoe wasn't a golden thing. And so the bakers had a golden corn ear of corn in his bag, so that's what the cow eats, and then the boy is able to milk the cow. This is after it's brought back to life by the witch, and the witch drinks a potion so that she can become young again because she's cursed with old age. And so it's very, very strange. The bit where it completely kind of veered off was that there was one being left, and what had happened is Jack had been stealing stuff from the giants. He'd been going up the beanstalk, stealing stuff from the giants. And eventually there's a male and female giant up there, and the male giant comes after him. He cuts the beanstalk down, and the giant falls to the ground and dies. And then there's one more bean left that one of them carelessly ends up just putting in the wood, and then the female giant comes down and it's like, who killed my husband? And so then there's like terror in the woods and terror in the palace, and things all change. And the woman who's married to the baker, she sees the prince in the wood, and the prince in the wood decides to kiss her. But she's married and she thinks she shouldn't be doing it, but she really wants to kiss it. She loves the passion of the prince, and she lets it happen. And she's like, oh no, this shouldn't be happening. And then he kisses her more and more and more. But then he leaves her in the wood, and the big giant comes and stomps her feet. And then she is, the baker's wife, goes backwards, falls backwards over a cliff and dies. So it's very weird the way that turns out. Very, very strange. And Cinderella can talk to birds. The birds tell her that her husband, the prince, has basically kissed the other woman, so he's not faithful. She then confronts the prince about it, and the prince says, well, I'm designed to be charming, not faithful, or not sincere, that type of wording. And so she said that she'd rather, she's had the peasant lifestyle, she's had the prince lifestyle, she'd rather have the one in between. So then she ends up being with the baker. The baker's wife did have a baby before she died, and he let her go in the wood by herself, which, he shouldn't have really done. And the baby was left with the girl who was Little Red Riding Hood, because the Little Red Riding Hood, when the giant was stomping all over the village, Little Red Riding Hood couldn't go to see her granny anymore. And they were trying to hunt down Jack because the giant wanted Jack to save the village, because the giant was after Jack. And if Jack gets killed by the giant, then the whole place is saved. But the baker doesn't want Jack dead. Little Red Riding Hood doesn't want Jack dead. The princess who's married to the prince doesn't want Jack dead. And the princess basically is more of the type of the baker, she makes kind of like a housewifey type of person for him. So in the end, you can probably guess what happens is the princess ends up being with the baker. They end up being with Jack, the Little Red Riding Hood, and the baby as well. But the baby is conceived asexually. So this is what's so interesting, is because the witch then makes the woman pregnant, which is the baker's wife, and then she just basically has the baby really quickly, and that's it. Because when the curse was lifted from her and the witch, and she got her youth, the deal was that she allowed them to have a baby. So as soon as that happened, she went zap, and she's got a bloated belly, and then they got a baby. You don't even see them having a baby delivered. It's just like there's no sex involved whatsoever. So if you're an asexual person who's sex repulsed, then you probably love this movie, because there's no sex involved, and they even have a kid without sex. So yeah, I thought you'd think that's quite an asexual part to the movie. But clearly the woman who did have the baby, she's not used to passion. She likes passion, and when she gets seduced by the prince, she does feel guilty, but she kind of feels like she had the experience and she'd never forget it. I always think that's quite an interesting storyline, but I don't like it, because I think someone should be faithful, and I think it's disgusting when someone goes around kissing someone else when they're married to someone else, when they got a husband or wife or partner already. But I do understand that people in the moment can like experiences. That's why I think, sometimes it's better to be single and just have experiences, if that's what you actually want, rather than getting married and trying to be committed in a relationship if you feel that you really just want passion and excitement in your life. Do you know what I mean? Or you work with the person you're in the relationship with, the person you're married to make it more passionate and excitement. exciting, should I say, you know? But asexuals a lot of the time don't have so much of this problem because a lot of asexuals don't need sex. They're not so lustful, the majority, I would say, or passionate. I'm quite kissing lustful, I would say. I'm a very sensual and passionate girl, even though I don't like sex. So that's kind of hard for me sometimes. I used to love the whole idea of, being married to someone forever and living happily ever after, and I didn't get that. And so nowadays I kind of do like experiences, asexual experiences to a certain extent. I always think I'd like to meet the right guy and be in a loving, committed relationship with him. It'd be great, but I haven't found that guy yet. And I do like kissing experiences and stuff like that. So, hopefully one day I might meet my guy. But if not, I'm happy being single and I get to have loads of different wonderful experiences in life. And I'd rather have those experiences while I'm single. I don't believe in cheating at all and being unfaithful and stuff like that. I just don't believe in that. I don't think that's right. So, Into the Woods is a very thought-provoking movie. It's all about, like taking responsibility and accountability for your own actions rather than running away as well, and facing up to things rather than blaming other people for, your part in it. Because at one point, I should say, towards the end of the movie, they're all blaming each other for the fact that this giant is after everyone, crushed half the village, but particularly after Jack, and if she can't find Jack to get revenge on Jack, she's gonna basically destroy the whole of the places they live in. And a lot of it's destroyed anyway. So there's a song because it's a musical, which is really interesting, and they all start blaming each other and say, "Well, this is your fault because of that, your fault because of that," and they never take responsibility. It's only when they take responsibility and accountability and start saying, "Well, maybe that was my fault, and maybe I did play a part in that," that they end up working together as a team and kind of living happily ever after, just without the baker's wife who's dead. But she comes back as a ghost to like talk to him, and say about, things will be fine and reassure him. And then he sees his actual dad. I don't know if his dad's a ghost. I think his dad must be a ghost. I'm not sure. Because his dad suddenly appears at the end and he's like, "Don't run away from your responsibilities in your life like I did with you. Don't be the guy I was." And so he changed it at the end. So it's very interesting. I didn't really like the storyline where she cheated with the prince and, snogged him, but then she died afterwards. I kind of thought that was a bit justice, like you shouldn't have been doing that. So you kind of like snuffed it and is dead as a result. Not I'm saying like kissing someone you're not supposed to should warrant death, but I do think it's a bit of justice, because you shouldn't be unfaithful to someone, But if you like experiences and you like snogging different people, then don't be in a serious committed relationship, Anyway, I think it's interesting this asexual conception of a kid because there's no sex involved whatsoever. You could call it an asexual conception if you want. I'm not even sure how much she's sexually attracted to the baker, because it's like in the woods you see that when she's getting passionate, she likes the newer side of him. You kind of feel that she's not that attracted to him as he is. He's a bit boring for her. He's a bit monotone for her. He's a bit monotonous for her. It's more like the Cinderella princess is more suited to him and the type of woman he wants, whereas she, his wife, the baker's wife, probably was more suited to the prince in some ways. But he just likes to charm women, and he doesn't really want to settle down. He just got married for marrying someone. So he's a bad prince. But the other prince takes Rapunzel away and seems to really be into her and snog her. So there is some kissing in this. So if you do like kissing, you'll enjoy the movie. If you don't like kissing, you might get a bit eek by that. But yeah, the guy who's with Rapunzel, he's snogging her quite a lot. At one point, he goes blind because a witch curses him, and then the Rapunzel cries on his eyes, and he opens his eyes and can see her. And says to the witch who's been acting as her mother for years, that I never want to see you again, because the mother locked her up, and she's going, "Oh, but I love you. I've done everything for you." She's like, "But you locked me up and held me prisoner, so I never want to see you again." And Rapunzel rides off into the sunset with the prince, who seems dedicated to her, whereas the other prince is his brother, who's charming but not sincere. And that's when the princess decides she doesn't want to be with him. She'd rather be with the baker and have like a makeshift family, if you like. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this movie review. If you watched the movie, please comment below. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, and check out my playlist of no sex movie reviews. I do a lot of no sex movie reviews because I'm a personally sex repulsed asexual, and there's a lot of asexuals that feel that they can't find any movies which have got no sex in it at all. And I specialize in that, and specialize in finding them and watching them and reviewing them. So do check that out in my playlists tab on this channel. I love you and leave you for now. Take care. I'll see you soon in the next video live stream. Lots of love. Bye.